So I'm going to wing most of this, so please interrupt me if you have any questions, just in the middle of what I'm saying, please. So for the last 2 years...
What's your name?
Oh, my name is Wolfgang Wozniak, sorry, that's probably a good place to start. For the last 2 years, a buddy and I have been working for a company called Iron Galaxy out of Chicago. And what we do for them is R&D and prototyping and intellectual property development, basically. And what that means is, we basically have been doing game jams for the last 2 years for them, more or less, right? And we've learned a lot about, dealing with producers, dealing with pitches, and how to, effectively generate prototypes in a cost-efficient manner and all that kind of thing. So what I want to talk to you about today is my experiences with that and, how you might deal with producers that don't have the full amount of time to dedicate during the week to look at your game. They might only see it 1 day a week or once every week and a half or 2 weeks. So what we learned is, dealing with our producers, is that they, since they work with Microsoft pretty closely on some other projects, that they will tend to forget what we're working on in some circumstances, the intricacies of those things. So what that means is that when we're producing something and we're presenting next week, that if we sort of over-explain the minutiae of the decisions we made about why we changed this, and this week by week, that can get in the way of showing them, here's what it is, here's what we changed, show, don't tell is one of the big things we learned from that. And, because they don't have a ton of time to dedicate to our R&D team, one of the things that we did learn, and this took us a long time, is that, they will also forget how to play well. Like, they won't forget how to play, but they'll forget how to play well. Which means that since you're spending more time with the game than they are, if you just play like normal, you'll just destroy them and they'll think your game's unbalanced, right? So there's a little bit of theater that goes into showing them the new version of your prototype. They go, oh, we changed this, and we tweaked the damage value of this, or this works a little bit differently. You have to kind of just... We're making kind of a third-person shooter right now, so one of the things that I would have to do is intentionally miss him in order to give him a better and more competitive experience in his eyes. And my business buddy, my partner, can't do it because he just can't bring himself to lie to our producer about his skill in our own game. So it's a very funny dynamic where I have to let Kurt win occasionally. So so that's a really big thing that we learned is that since we're making the game and we spend more time than they do, that our skills will be with an action game will be better than theirs. The other thing to go back to the minutia and the over-explaining things, we would spend 5 to 10 minutes talking about why we made a change to an ability or to a weapon or whatever it is, some part of the game, and it would just sort of they would think about it really hard, and then they would sort of debate us on it, right? And then what that means is, in a hour to 2 hour long meeting, that would waste a lot of time, because they would find themselves caring about something they didn't care about before if we chose to talk about it too much, which is sort of an interesting thing to think about, right? Is that if you tell them why you did something, they will push back on it super hard. Whereas if you just do it, they may not mind it in a normal context. So it's really interesting to deal with a AAA developer like this, especially considering, I think they get quagmired in these Microsoft meetings about those things. And if you bait them into those conversations, then you'll end up with a Microsoft-esque meeting. Here's a 6 hour long conference call about why we changed the fall off radius of the grenade, whatever, it doesn't matter. And that can be a little dangerous. And the biggest thing, again, is show, don't tell. And that's even in a pitch context too, right? Is that, one of the things we learned recently is that tutorials, in a lot of cases, trump adding a feature that you might have lost otherwise in terms of time. This will not turn back on. Meaning that it's better to get their hands on it and not to tell them exactly what to do, because if you do that, then you're taking time away from them interacting with your pitch. So you want to get them in there, looking at the game, hearing whatever sound thing you've got going on, right? Maybe it's the music, maybe it's the audio cues, the little buttons, all that feedback stuff. And getting them doing it, reading it, and just following through on the actions is better than like going, well, press A to do this. Like if you tell them and point at the controller and tell them to do this thing, they will never remember that. Whereas if you just have a tutorial and have a lot of explanation in the actual software, it's something they're less likely to forget. And that's, yeah, if there's some like feature that you're worried that won't make it into your prototype, for like if you're going to some company and you'd like to seek funding for your project, it's best to just have them spending the full amount of time with the project, with the product, and less time talking to you, which is sort of a weird thing to balance sometimes. But it depends on like the phase of where you're at in your conversation, right? So if it's, okay, sit with this and see it, you don't want to interrupt that time, right? The business comes later. The business and the talks and the deals and all that kind of stuff comes later. The thing you want to pull them into with is your game, and not like you hyping up this thing that doesn't really exist yet, right? Did you have something? No? Okay. I think that's pretty much all I had to say about that. Any questions at all, perhaps?
How many different prototypes have you done?
Oh, that's a good question. 8, 9, something like that, 10-ish, 10-ish. I'll say 10-ish. Yeah, we've done, and most of our stuff, since we work with, one of our producers is in San Antonio, Texas. The other one's in Chicago. I'm here, and my business partner lives in Missouri. So every game we've had to develop has also had to be networked, because everyone has to play it together in these meetings at the same time, which has been sort of a challenge over the last 2 years, but and has led to some interesting syncing bugs and who's running the server where and all that kind of thing, right? Anything else?
Okay.
Okay.